Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 122. He's Dave Bryan, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being here with us this Tuesday, Steelers Nation. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Just seeing that Carl Reiner passed away at 98 years old. You probably have no idea who Carl Reiner is.
Nope, unfortunately.
Legendary entertainer and all, funny guy. 98 is a long time to live. Would you want to live 98 years, especially in this current state of the world?
Yeah, asking me in 2020 is probably going to give you a different answer than a year ago.
I don't think I had to worry about living that long, but that's a long time to be around. That's for sure.
All right, Dave, let's jump into the show today. Something that DeMaurice Smith, head of the NFLPA, talked about, and we're not going to dive too deep into the whole coronavirus stuff because I think we've talked about that a lot in recent podcasts, and there isn't any big new development or update, at least as it relates to the NFL. But DeMaurice Smith basically talking recently and just saying that, quote, look, if we want to look at it this way, if our fans, truly want football back and we all want an uninterrupted season, there is no greater exercise of fan loyalty than to engage in social distancing, wear a mask, wash your hands, and do your best to mitigate the spread of the virus. So basically saying, if there's any chance of having fans in stands, and certainly the best way for football to go as scheduled, which is still the aim and the goal of the NFL, then following those basic things like washing your hands, wearing a mask is the best way that fans can do their part to help football stay on track. Yeah,
without inviting people to get into the whole debate of the masks don't work or anything along those lines. It's to me it's at least a possibly good preventive maintenance. You know what I'm saying? So
sure.
If it's just a little inconvenience and it does wind up being helpful and all, which I know many people believe that's the case. I know every time we leave the house now, we put one on, and I absolutely hate it. But it's I view it, and Dr. Mel told me this early on. Said it's more to protect other people than it is to protect to protect you. So that's kind of what's in the back of my head there. So yeah, look, I mean, the news the last week and a half, 2 weeks hasn't been great in regards to kind of resurgence in this thing. So that seems like the best plan of action there is to get as many people as we can to possibly wear a mask and go from there. Once again, I don't want to get into a debate of whether or not it helps or whatnot. But I mean, if this is what the head of the NFLPA is advising players and people to do, if they want to see football this year, then take that for what it is. And the funny thing about it is you have the NFLPA. And DeMaurice Smith saying this and advising these players not to gather together for these kind of put together workouts, if you will. Yet we have the Tom Brady's of the world doing just that. So. Look, we'll have to see what happens. We're getting closer. Obviously less than a month away from camps getting underway here. We'll have to see if the players start heeding the advice of the union. I'm willing to bet a lot of them don't, and we'll see where that leaves us about a month from now.
Well, I assume that Tom Brady's tomato and green bean smoothie makes him immortal to anything, so I assume he's just going to be fine. But no, I mean, the question is, how do you enforce that? You can recommend it, and that's what the union and the league and doctors have recommended, that don't work out together, but you can't. Can you mandate players not to do it? It seems a tough line to walk.
No, you definitely can't. You can't mandate that kind of stuff, I wouldn't think.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I mean, look, these players need to help out, their own cause here a little bit more.
Yeah, but we'll keep you updated on any sort of updates. Again, as of right now, training camp's supposed to open for the entire NFL on July 28th. Cases are on the rise, even in Pittsburgh. While the number of cases is relatively low compared to places like Florida and Texas and Arizona right now, cases are on the rise. They just shut down the bars in Allegheny County, which is where Pittsburgh's at. So hopefully the numbers will go back down to where they were at about a week or two ago, and we'll keep you posted on any other updates. But that's the latest. All right, Dave, let's transition to some Steelers stuff here, and let's start with everyone's favorite top 10 rankings, the pinnacle of the offseason. I know CBS has gone through top 10s at basically every position, including head coaches, and according to CBS's latest top 10 ranking, Mike Tomlin came in 7th in their head coach rankings. Let me read off the top 7 to you and let you know your thoughts on these things. Bill Belichick number 1, Andy Reid number 2, John Harbaugh, Sean Payton, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Mike Tomlin. I'll round out the top 10. Pete Carroll at 8, Doug Peterson at 9, and Mike Zimmer at number 10. So what do you think about Tomlin's placement on that list?
It feels like overall, and obviously you're going to get a different answer from, you could line up 10 people and you're going to get, from different fan bases, you would obviously get different answer here. But it feels like 5 to 7, 5th place to 7th place is Tomlin's spot in this thing. And look, I mean, I realize what happened last year, and the Steelers failed to make the playoffs again for a second consecutive time, and that's going to be fresh in everybody's mind, what ultimately happened. But, the team did go 8-8 when many people didn't think that was even possible immediately after losing Ben, and of course the injuries that they had along the way. I'll just leave it at this. It feels like he should be in that 5 to 7 range. So that's where he is, 7th. Here's the thing: are you really gonna? I mean, I think Sean McVay is a great coach, but really outside of making one Super Bowl, which is obviously a huge achievement, has he done enough to warrant? Heading into 2020, especially kind of the roster that they had. Look, they were set up, basically to make a run at this thing. Many people thought last season, and that didn't happen. Does he belong or deserve to be ranked ahead of Tomlin?
That's the one name on that list where I think Tomlin should clearly be ahead. I would put Tomlin ahead of McVay. I think everyone else on that list above him, Belichick, Reid, Harbaugh, Payton, and Shanahan, if you want to make a case for them being above Tomlin, I'm fine with that. So for me, I don't know if I definitely put Tomlin at 6, but I definitely put him ahead of Sean McVay, which would put him at number 6. And I think that one's the only one where I sit there and go, I think that one needs to be changed.
And look at Kyle Shanahan. I mean, so I think people will try to make the argument. Look, he lost his quarterback the year before, and look what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets his quarterback back, and yada yada. And then they're in the Super Bowl, but they did lose the Super Bowl, right?
Right.
Once again, huge accomplishment there. And I kind of wonder if it's just maybe a tad early to have Kyle Shanahan that high as well too. I get the whole Andy Reid thing. Andy Reid, even if Andy Reid hadn't won the Super Bowl last year, is probably still going to be top 6, 7 coach, right?
Right, definitely.
So obviously with the recency bias and leading that team to the Super Bowl, that's going to get him a top 3 spot. Bill Belichick, I mean, you knew that was coming there.
What about Harbaugh at 3? Some people would say Tomlin's better than Harbaugh.
Well, look, and I put this in the article yesterday. How many years ago was it that we were talking about Harbaugh not making the playoffs 3 consecutive years and having a less than 500 record over the span of those 3 years, and people were calling for him to be out in Baltimore. It doesn't seem that too terribly long ago. And a great season for the Ravens last season, but last I looked, as the number 1 seed, they were one and done, weren't they?
Yeah, they lost to Tennessee.
Lost to Tennessee there. So, had he gone further in the playoffs, maybe. Look, he is a good coach. He's a very good coach. No doubt about it. this soon removed from kind of the seasons that he went through a couple years ago, and then add on top of it him not winning at least one playoff game last season with that quote unquote defense and that offense. To me, that seems a little bit ranked high. But I guess the argument against that would be, okay, well, if you don't have Harbaugh number 3, who's number 3?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then does Tomlin deserve to be higher because he has missed the playoffs the last 2 years, and there are different reasons for that. Last year was such a difficult season, as you mentioned. Just going 8-8 feels like a minor miracle in itself from where this team was at the hole they dug themselves. But still, you were 8-8, you didn't make the playoffs. So with Harbaugh, I mean, these lists always reflect the more recency, and I'm okay with that. They're lists to capture the moment as opposed to maybe the totality of the past decade. So Harbaugh, what he's done with Lamar, kind of being an innovator, being more risk adverse when a lot of coaches were, or risk, being more aggressive and taking more risk as opposed to fearing risk, which a lot of coaches do. I mean, Harbaugh goes for it on 4th down and 2-point conversions. I kind of like that in the NFL because so many coaches are just worried about doing the wrong thing and they want to play it safe. So I'm fine with Harbaugh being above Tomlin right now. If Tomlin, obviously, if this Steelers team can go the place we think it can this year, then Tomlin's going to move up that list. And obviously it's a top 10 list, so I don't really spend a whole lot of time on it in the first place.
Where's Mike Vrabel? Does he belong in the top 10 on this? If you're going to go kind of recency recency bias in here.
Yeah, I mean, I bet you on that list he'd be right around 11 or 12. I mean, I think if he has another really strong year like Tennessee had and goes on another run, then he's definitely going to be in that top 10. It's hard for me to come up with a criteria. And as you said, there's a recency thing versus a longevity thing you're trying to weigh. It's just not something to think about a whole lot, to be honest with you.
Look, I mean, I'll give CBS Sports HQ this. They've created quite a stir.
Yeah, they really have.
With mostly doing this on Twitter, and having their various writers, put these lists out, really, I guess, going on the last week or so here. Mm-hmm. They've done a good job of getting the response there.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy to see the NFL, Twitter fans really focus on just the random list here in the end of June. All right, Dave. We'll talk about Zach Banner. Banner's been in the news.
Real quick before we forget here. What do you think about the Patriots and the signing of Cam Newton to a 1-year deal that's reportedly worth up to $7.5 million?
I think it was a great signing for him. I think it's basically no risk. I think Newton is clearly the most talented quarterback on that roster. I did not have a whole lot of faith in Jarrett Stidham being the answer short-term or long-term. And, yeah, I think obviously health is the issue for Newton, but I'm excited to see what he can do with Belichick, and obviously much different quarterback, the polar opposite type of quarterback than Tom Brady. But I think he can succeed and thrive there, and I think the Patriots can now really be playoff contenders again.
I mean, it really shifted some of the odds, quite obviously, I think. But were they a playoff team before this, and are they now?
I think it was pretty borderline before. I mean, obviously it's hard to bet against Belichick and the scheme. That defense is still strong, but man, if you don't have good quarterback play, the Steelers know that as well as anyone. You can have a great defense. You can feel like you have everything else in place, and if your quarterback play is just poor, you just don't have much of a chance. So I think it was borderline before, especially in an AFC East that's getting better with teams like Buffalo, for example, that's on the rise. I think after adding Newton, then they can, I think, be in playoff contention and certainly stronger position to win the AFC East.
Their defense should be good, So
yep.
If they can, if Cam Newton can stay healthy and not make stupid decisions with the football. Look, I mean, I think it's odd. People will point to his last 8 games or whatnot, and he's something like winless or so in his last 8 games or whatnot. But I mean, he wasn't healthy. I mean, that's pretty pretty much verified and given there. When
and that Carolina team wasn't as strong as what the Patriots roster has.
Right. But look, I mean, there's some big shoes to fill too, and if he comes out of the chute, let's assume that he is their starting quarterback right out of the chute. And A or B, he's not going to, like a lot of quarterbacks around the league, not going to have a lot of time to really fit in with that offense, on the field. It's going to be, hi, how you doing? I'm Cam Newton at training camp, and then try to start getting a grasp of things going on there. And then they've got a pretty tough, I don't know if you've looked at the Patriots schedule recently, but they've got a pretty pretty tough road here, I think, in say like their first 7 or 8, 9 games, I think. So if they come out to shoot, what I'm getting at is if they come out to shoot, losing a couple of games and the fan base gets on, and that media gets on them, and specifically Cam Newton, it'll be curious to see how Cam kind of handles that, because he hasn't really handled, for the most part, criticism from media well, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think if there's any team that can handle those distractions and outside media pressures, it's the Patriots overall, and just, what they've created, and that's all, led by Bill Belichick. But it'll be interesting for sure. I mean, it's a very different Patriots team this year, and something we have not said in a long, long time.
People say, well, $7.5 million, why didn't the Steelers sign Newton? Hey, I really still think Newton wanted a legitimate shot to be a starter.
Mm-hmm.
That obviously wasn't going to happen with the Steelers. He wanted enough money to kind of make it worth his while, and kind of probably knew that he would have to sign some sort of incentive based deal here to ensure to possibly earn the max that he wanted. And plus, he wanted a 1-year deal too. And I think, look, if you look at Kevin Colbert, not that the Steelers had interest, there's not any part of me that would believe any story that would surface right now that would say that the Steelers had any interest in Cameron Newton. In fact, I think Adam Schefter reported yesterday, I think on his podcast, that only the Cleveland Browns really had kind of passing fancy in Cam Newton. He was only going to sign a 1-year deal because he wants to be able to show that he is, kind of the player that he was, a few years ago, and then still can command that high dollar there. Now, assuming that, a good chunk of this $7.5 million is likely to be earned versus not likely to be earned, that means that they would count against the cap now, and thus, it'll be even tougher for a team like the Steelers to kind of absorb that kind of thing there. So now, look, obviously, if the Steelers wanted Cam Newton bad enough, they probably could have done something to make it work. But once again, there's been no. It would take a lot of convincing with me right now, even if a report surfaced right now saying that the Steelers had some even sort of passing fancy in him. I'm curious. I think Cam Newton can potentially still be something in this league, but on the flip side of that, why did it take so long? Was it part of teams just wanting to make sure he got fully rehabbed before taking a chance on him? Did they want to see kind of how this pandemic was playing out? Why did it take so long for Cam Newton to ultimately get signed? And why was it ultimately a team like the Patriots?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's all the reasons you mentioned. I think it's the fact that he wanted to be a starter, and a lot of places were either maybe you'll compete or we don't have a starting role for you, and maybe a financial issue. I'm not sure. I think the Patriots, they don't have a whole lot of cap space either. So I don't know if it was even for Pittsburgh a financial issue. It was to the point what you said, that Newton wanted to be a starter, or at least have a really good opportunity to be a starter. That was obviously not going to happen in Pittsburgh, and we knew Newton wasn't going to be in the cards for the Steelers. And yeah, there's no report the Steelers have any interest. It was Cleveland who, I think, just called him, and I'm sure Cleveland didn't happen because Newton wanted to be the starter, and that wouldn't happen in Cleveland with Baker. So Patriots feel like the perfect place, and they have a mobile quarterback now, and that is a stark contrast to Brady. And it'll be very interesting to see how the offense evolves with Belichick and McDaniels with a completely different style quarterback.
How many other teams other than the Patriots were out there? It's possible the Patriots were just bidding against themselves for the most part.
True.
Maybe they had interest in Cam most of the offseason here, and maybe Belichick told him, look, early in the offseason, who knows how this all played out. But my mind tends to think that Belichick tested the waters, prior to this, and Newton probably said, let me wait this thing out and see what's out there or whatnot. And Belichick said, look, this is the price. This is, end of story. This is what we can do for you here. But I have to know exactly 1 month out from the start of training camp. Okay. Because, if we're going to bring you in, we're going to need that time being inside of no off-season workouts because we got to get you on the moving train, so to speak here. And if you don't make the decision by this date, then we're pulling the offer off the table. But with assuming maybe that's the way that worked out there, what other teams realistically would have been landing spots for a guy like Cam Newton? Obviously, it's not going to be Tampa Bay, Carolina, the Steelers, some of these other, the Chiefs. You could go through the list, the Seattle, Houston, Arizona. But what about a team like maybe the Chargers? Could that have been a realistic landing spot for him?
Sure, it could have. Absolutely. And I think, could a team earlier in the offseason like Chicago, hypothetically, when they wanted someone to come in and compete with Trubisky, obviously they went with Nick Foles. Could that have been an option? I'm not sure. I think the fact that there wasn't the offseason program allowed teams to wait to sign someone like Cam Newton because you didn't have to feel like you had to get him in for early May to get him in for your OTAs and mini camps and all that stuff because none of that existed. So you could kind of wait and obviously want to get him in now before training camp so he has time to learn the offense and so he's in a better place for the start of camp. But, I think had you had the offseason program, he probably gets signed earlier so he gets to go through the offseason program with your team. So, and honestly, I think that's one reason why it took so long to sign him.
What is he a lightning rod for criticism?
He's been a pretty polarizing guy. I think a lot of it's been unfair criticism, but sure. To answer the question, yes.
Let's admit that there's some high expectations, obviously, with the Patriots, right? So, like I said, look, this team comes out. I don't know if you've looked at their schedule recently here. The Patriots start with Miami, and then they have Seattle, the Raiders, the Chiefs, the Broncos, then their bye, and then the 49ers and Bills, Jets, and Ravens. That's a pretty stout for the most part. Look how many teams in there, either have a decent franchise quarterback or B are coming off of making the playoffs last season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be tough. Like I said, it'll be very interesting. It's a different dynamic for this Patriots team for the first time in forever, 2 decades, and we'll see how it plays out.
All right. Now that I guess that means all that's out there is Colin Kaepernick, right?
Yeah, and no update on his future. There's been some rumors. I have no idea what's going to happen. We'll keep you posted if he signs somewhere.
All right.
All right, Dave, quick note here before we jump into what Zach Banner talked about in an interview yesterday. We have our Friday night 5 questions winner picked at random. It is Hoptown. I don't believe Hoptown has communicated with us yet. So if you're listening to the podcast, the user Hoptown on the Steelers Depot comment section, please contact Dave in the Terrible Podcast, and congrats on being the winner.
Yeah, absolutely. Yet to hear back. We've given away quite a few books. Gave away another one on the live stream Monday night. Had a good turnout for that as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you everyone who came out to that. Again, if you missed it, you can catch us every Monday, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. They're also archived on Steelers Depot up right now and also wherever you listen to the Terrible Podcast. All right, Dave, Zach Banner had an interview with, I believe, The Fan yesterday and just talking about his offseason and quarantine and the right tackle job, and was asked about, what's it like battling with a teammate? And obviously he's going to be going against Chukwuma Okorafor for that right tackle spot. That's basically how Mike Tomlin framed it last week. And Banner said, quote, "It's one of those type of things where that's my boy and vice versa. At the end of the day, we go and we practice and we support each other. You have to do that because the decision really isn't so much about whether or not we're making the roster anymore." And that's a good way to frame it. There's healthy competition there. It's going to bring the best out of both guys. And that's an ideal situation when you have an open spot. That no one is handed that spot. They have to earn that opportunity, and I think that makes for the best situation to really get the best evaluation on Banner and Okorafor.
Yeah, look, and I thought he handled them. So I'm not sure if you listened to the entire interview, but I thought Banner hit on some good things there, saying that Mike Tomlin basically had told him, a couple off seasons ago, or prior to or I guess it would have been last off season that he was going to be around, going to be part of that team, and they want to see him make that next jump there, and he obviously did that. He was a guy that was dressed every week and was essentially really the backup. The backup swing guy there for several games because he was dressing over a guy like Chukwuma Okorafor, right? Mm-hmm. And moving forward now, he in so many words says, Tomlin and him had to sit down after this past season and said, look, we want to potentially look at you, maybe looking back at this 2020 season as being a 16-game starter here. So he believes in the confidence that Mike Tomlin has in him. He also knows that nothing's going to be given to him right now, and knows that it's a big offseason for him. He feels that he's earned everything that he's gotten so far, and now he, in so many words, is looking forward to to continuing to earn. And I think the Steelers have, especially with Tomlin coming out and saying what he did last week about Matt Filer going to be first up to get the snaps at left guard. I think that's didn't necessarily surprise many people, nor did the fact that Tomlin said that guys like Banner and Okorafor are going to fight it out for that right tackle spot. I truly believe this is one of the top position battles that legitimately, Tomlin will tell you every position's open, but I mean, we know that's technically not true. But this is one of the better position battles heading into training camp here, and we all. I know you wrote. Why don't you recap everybody what you kind of put into audio form the other day on the site?
Yeah, well, I think it is the top position battle. I think it is the most impactful position battle, more impactful than nose tackle, for example, or backup safety. Those ones have meaning, of course. This is your starting right tackle, obviously. And I think it's the closest battle, where I don't know which way it's going to go. And that's something that I did in my audio breakdown of this battle, and I've talked about and written about. And I did a fan poll on this on Twitter the other day, got over 1,500 votes, and it was a literal tie between actually Matt Filer and Zach Banner for who fans think will be the starting right tackle week 1 against the Giants. But I do think it comes down to Banner and Okorafor. Filer only kicks back outside if both Banner and Okorafor really fall on their face, which I find pretty unlikely at this point. But yeah, I mean, Okorafor, it's a big year for him. I mean, he had the shoulder surgery this offseason. He was very underpowered last year, had a disappointing season. Maybe you blame that on the injury. It's hard to say. And for Banner, I mean, he's right. He's earned everything he's gotten in Pittsburgh. I mean, this guy came very, very close to falling out of football, and he's worked his butt off to transform his body to get his weight down and be a completely different player and give himself a chance to be in this position to be starting a right tackle. But he has not played a lot of right tackle before. He's not played a ton of football, honestly, on Sundays on the field. 200 snaps last year, and that's about it. He played like 20-something in Cleveland in 2017. So the guy just honestly does not have a ton of NFL experience, especially at right tackle, kick setting, working against speed rushers, working in pass pro and stuff like that. But Okorafor, of course, doesn't have a whole lot of experience either. So it is probably about the same on both ends for these guys. So yeah, it's a big year for both, for their short-term future, for the long-term future, for their financial future. And if you made me choose, and I said this battle is really close, I think it could go either way. Made me choose, I think I would go Okorafor for week 1, just because when this team has needed a right tackle the last 2 years, it's been Okorafor getting the nod over Zach Banner. But again, I think it really comes down to just whoever plays the best this summer.
And that's where I stand in this battle so far too. And it's mostly based off of recency, what has happened when they have needed a starter at right tackle. Nothing more than that, because obviously, we hadn't seen Okorafor really, other than those couple of starts, play that much. And on the flip side, Banner playing roughly, what did he play, 200-something snaps last year? And obviously most as eligible offensive lineman. And look, I think he represented himself well when he was out there, but it's a little bit different than actually playing tackle for 65 snaps a game.
Sure. Yeah, big difference. Yeah.
There. So just the recency aspect alone, and really, I don't see how else you can really kind of handicap that position contest, if you will, right now anyway, because once again, you have roughly, let's see, I guess how many snaps has Okorafor played in his couple of starts there? What,
probably about 120 something. I can look it up for you.
Yeah,
one start the last 2 years.
Right, and Banner obviously has a little bit more playing time than that, but that's overall.
But less at right tackle.
Right,
yeah.
That's overall, but not at per se right tackle there. So this obviously could go either way. And I guess what I'm saying is I would not make a sizable bet as to how this thing will go. Now the upside here, you're obviously going to settle on the best guy. That the guy that does the best job and give you the best opportunity to man that right tackle spot the entire season here. But if you're looking a little bit further out, your Banner's on only under contract for 2020, whereas Okorafor obviously a little bit longer. But on the flip side, if a guy like Okorafor in his third year cannot beat out a guy like Banner, then really doesn't matter how much longer he has right. on his contract, and so that's really where we're at right now. It comes down to what these two guys can do this year alone, how they can help the team, and you would think, at least the educated guess would be that the loser of this contest would be the next man up.
Of course, yeah, I think that certainly they could work. Whoever loses this will become the 6th offensive lineman, next man up, swing guy potentially. Absolutely. Here are the career snaps in a Steelers uniform for both guys. Chukwuma Okorafor, 229. Zach Banner, 222. So basically even there. Again, Okorafor working a little bit, I think, as 6th offensive lineman his rookie year, but right tackle against Denver in 2018, the Rams last year. Banner, I think. Has he taken a snap at right tackle in a regular season game?
Banner?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it, does it?
I don't think he has. Yeah, I think it's all been as a 6th offensive. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe there was some odd snap, but very few, if any. And so, again, obviously he's played right tackle, played it in camp preseason. It's not like it's brand new to him, but just hasn't done it really in a game, and that'll be the test for him. And like I said, I think this battle could go really either way. There's pros and cons. There's cases to make for and against both men.
I'm constantly trying to come up with fun questions to ask in the Friday Night Five, and I think I just came up with one, and I'm going to ask it to you now. Will the Week 1 right tackle starter for the Steelers be the Week 1 right tackle starter for the Steelers in 2021?
Your questions, Dave. They're too good.
That's a good one.
That's a very good question. Because hypothetically, if it's Okorafor, the answer is probably yes, because he's on his rookie deal. He'll be the starter next year. If it's Banner, well, then you're asking the question of will he return because he's a free agent after this year and he's going to command some money if he is the starting right tackle this year. So. My current answer,
and look, money speaks the loudest here. But this guy, to hear him talk on the radio, this guy legitimately loves being in Pittsburgh. I think.
Sure. He's given the opportunity. I mean, everything Pittsburgh's given him, and how can you not love it?
But not, if he's still a starting, if he starts for 16 games. That's going to really, really help his free agency.
Yeah, love of Pittsburgh doesn't pay the bills.
Right. Yeah. So I which way are you going with that? And what are the chances that if Banner does, he in so many words, in this interview too, he said he's betting on himself, and now I really wonder. I envision the only other offer that he had was a 2-year deal that might have totaled out slightly higher than what he's getting on the 1-year deal, if that makes any sense. In other words, it'd been a little bit better off on a per year basis for the Steelers had they got him to a 2-year deal. Kevin Colbert special, if you will. Mm-hmm. This is a guy that claims that he took the 1-year deal because he wants to bet on himself.
Sure. If Banner were to become the right tackle hypothetically and start the season and play well, does he come back? I mean, of course, maybe, but with so many other free agents, I think McFarland would still be higher priority. Of course, you have Alejandro Villanueva, who's probably going to be higher priority. My guess would be no. I mean, I think that's kind of what Tomlin had said way back when is, my goal is to turn you into a $50 million tackle, even if that's in another city. And that may be the case if Banner wins that right tackle job this year.
All right. It'd be good. Let me tell you, it'd be a good problem to have if Banner's playing like a $50 million dollar, or really either one of those guys for that aspect. Sure. Because there's also the other flip side of kind of this talk here, and really I guess we could kind of morph this into kind of us talking about that was going to be our next position group, right? Breakdown. Mm-hmm. We were going to talk about offensive line, so we can kind of start, I guess, heading in that direction if you want to here.
Well, I was going to say also, if you want to get really technical about your question, because your question was, will that person be the starting right tackle in 2021? Right? That's what you said?
Right.
If you said it was Okorafor, then you have to think about what if he flips to left tackle if you lose Villanueva. So there's even that element to it as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm going with this. We what's going to happen. It doesn't look right now like Villanueva is going to get a new deal prior to the start of this season, right?
Agreed. I think it's only Cam that's getting an extension, and I don't even think it happens with Dupree.
Right. And maybe Villanueva's not going to want. Who knows what's going to be in Villanueva's mindset after this season?
Right. I've talked about that. I mean, this guy does not need football. He's got nagging shoulder injuries. He's already 32, 33. Granted, hasn't played football since he's 21 years old, but he's still 33 years old. He still has the body of a 33-year-old.
And he will have made I think enough money to live off of.
Plus he's got his degree, Carnegie Mellon. He got I think a bachelor's in business or something. So he's obviously got much more. He's much more than a football player.
Right. So the question is how much more does he want to play? And I wouldn't think that he would settle for if he were to sign another contract with the Steelers or another team, I can't see him wanting to play for $5 or $6 million a season, to be honest with you. So in other words, if he has a good 2020 season, you'd probably have to franchise tag him to keep him off the market.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's so many free agents right now. It's hard to wade through this all. Again, you're going to be losing some significant talent, and it's hard to pin down exactly who those guys are going to be. This year's going to determine a lot, but they're not going to be able to keep all the talent they have on this roster after this season.
Right. So I mean, there's a good chance that, and I guess where I'm going with this is, man, you hope one of those guys, Banner or Okorafor, does step up in some form or fashion, because you could actually possibly be looking for 2 tackles.
Sure.
I mean, you hope that's not the case, and you'd probably have to settle for, you could possibly be looking for 2 tackles and a left guard, potentially. Obviously you hope Dotson can become that guy and all over there, and a guard at this point you would think would be down the list some. But I mean, you could really get yourself in a position, and I shudder to think what that would look like in the 2020 season, where you need 2 tackles in 2021.
Right. Yeah, in a worst-case scenario, that could happen. Even in a scenario where Banner plays well and just prices himself out of Pittsburgh and Villanueva retires or something, or Okorafor doesn't step up. I mean, there are scenarios where you're exactly right. You could end up needing both tackles, but hopefully you can have at least one of those guys step up and have a tackle for 2021. You got to find the other guy. To circle back to the offensive line preview, we talked about the right tackle battle a lot, so we won't spend a whole lot of time talking about it now. The rest of the spots are pretty settled in, assuming that one of Banner or Okorafor is able to hold their own at right tackle, then Filer will stay at left guard, and I think he will play well there. And then everything else is pretty much set in stone. Villanueva at left tackle, Pouncey at center, and DeCastro at right guard.
Yeah, I don't think, other than us curiously watching what's going to happen at the right tackle battle, and then obviously I think the loser of that battle becomes the next guy up. So there's one other spot for you right there. I mean, obviously Dotson's going to make it as well too. You would think Wisniewski's going to make this team. So, barring injury, knock on wood, you got a good chunk of your offensive line already set there. Now the question becomes, how many more spots are you going to keep there in total, and who's going to man those spots?
Yeah, well, you have your 8, right? I mean, let's just put Okorafor as the starting right tackle and Filer at left guard. Your backups are then Banner, Wisniewski, and Dotson. So those are your 8, and those are pretty all locked in. And there's a question of, do you have a 9th, or do you have kind of guys floating from the practice squad when it expands to 55? Then you get into all that. But those are your 8 that are going to make it. Right,
and with Who would be in the driver's seat for a number 9 right now?
No one right now. They're all just sitting sidecar, and it's going to come down to just who shows well this summer, whether that's a Derwin Gray, or a Hassenauer or Jaron Jones or whoever else you want to put in there, but it's just the field trying to sort themselves out and someone trying to push ahead.
Right. There's really you can't really get a good sense. I mean, you would hope, being as how you had the draft pick, invested in Gray, that he could be that guy, but there's really been no sign. I really see a guy like maybe Hassenauer maybe sticking, especially if you have an expanded practice squad, that he would stick, as a practice squad kind of center / guard, and then. The thing with Gray is you would hope there's some level of maybe position flexibility in there that would allow him to be guard / tackle. But I would think guard would be the first of the two positions that you would hope he would excel at this offseason.
Yeah, they kicked him to guard immediately last year after playing tackle at Maryland. I don't think he's going to play much tackle at the NFL level. He's got to prove he can be just a good guard. He blames on health last year. He was not healthy. He had a very quiet preseason and training camp, playing third team most of the time. So, again, it's just a bunch of young guys that have very limited experience you don't know a whole lot about. The lack of an offseason program hurts them more. Lack of us being a training camp is going to hurt our evaluation of it. Potentially loss in preseason games hurts everybody in that process. So, we'll see. It's not even a guarantee they keep 9, but they could have some practice squad guys who kind of bounce on and off the roster with that 53 that expands to 55.
John Kenoy out of Western Michigan. What have you seen from him?
I did
on the tape.
I don't even think I really ended up watching much of his tape. I did do just a recap of kind of his story a couple weeks ago on Kenoy. I think he played with Okorafor, right? He played with Okorafor, and he played with somebody else. He was with Spillane. I think they were all the Western Michigan guys together. Another XFL guy was with the Dallas Renegades. He had, 50 games in his college career, so he was a starter, I think, pretty immediately, average testing. He's been in NFL camp before with the Vikings, originally as UDFA. We'll see. I mean, it's just, you throw him onto the pile with the rest of the guys and see who sticks.
Christian Montano is a guy, interesting prospect as well, too, especially with kind of, what he did off the field, but a Tulane product there, a decent size, practice squatter more than anything else, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, it's just hard to get a read on these guys. I think Jaron Jones is interesting from Notre Dame, former defensive lineman, is converted to offensive tackle. Pittsburgh's seen that story before. He's got good size, good length. Have I seen a whole lot of them? No, but I think it's an interesting conversion. Again, you can mention any of those, real deep of the roster reserve names and say maybe they make it, maybe they don't. It's just going to come down to really who picks up the playbook and is able to handle the lack of an offseason more. I think guys who have been in camp, guys who have played a little bit in the league before, like a Kenoy, for example, are going to benefit from that as opposed to maybe a rookie like Montana who's coming in. This is his first NFL experience. It's going to be tougher to transition than a guy that's at least been around football a little bit longer.
And we've talked a lot about Dotson, since being drafted and all like that. Obviously he's going to make this roster. I guess the question is where is his potential ceiling for his rookie season?
I don't think he's not gonna start at the left guard. I mean, the question would be
the only way that happens would be maybe injury related.
Yeah, well, okay, here's a scenario that because of injury or poor play or whatever, Matt Filer has to kick back out to right tackle. Then who's your starting left guard week 1? Is it Wisniewski or Dotson?
You would think it would be Wisniewski.
That's where I'm at. But that would be the ceiling for Dotson, where he could somehow eke out Wisniewski if he plays really well this summer, and Filer kick back out to right tackle, and Dotson is now your left guard. I think by 2021 is a lot more realistic. Heck, just kind of going back into the future, look at this. Let's say you need a right tackle next year because Banner's gone or whatever. You could kick Filer back out to right tackle and insert Dotson as your left guard, and then just have to take care of the left tackle spot.
Yeah, but the thing is, you would still have to. You're having to pay that money.
Yeah, you're gonna pay Filer,
right? And how much would it cost to keep a guy like Filer?
I honestly don't know where his market value would be because he's just bounced around so much. I mean, it wouldn't be super cheap, but I don't know if it would be crazy expensive either.
I see that kind of as the very. I see Filer being. I like the chances of Banner being back more so than I do the chances of Filer, and not because Filer's not a good player. I just think that Filer's going to do enough that he's going to just do enough to get himself a much bigger payday than what the Steelers are willing to pay him.
Yeah, my gut tells me File will be back, and again, I don't know exactly how much it's going to cost. It will cost something for sure, but I just think he's too valuable of a guy to lose, someone that you just feel so comfortable with. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's just the next Chris Hubbard, where you say he's done well here and he's got to move on and gets paid by someone else.
That's the analogy I should have used.
But I think with the Hubbard situation,
he Chris Hubbard himself out.
Yeah,
make it a verb.
Yeah, but I think the difference there was that right tackle spot wasn't set. I mean, Hubbard didn't have a starting opportunity in Pittsburgh the year that he left for Cleveland. And so Filer obviously would start if he came back. And so I think that's a little different scenario than what I presented.
The thing is, if you paid Filer, you're probably not going to pay anybody else. You're not going to pay Villanueva. You're probably not going to pay Banner,
Well, that's true. I think you probably signed one of those three offensive linemen, Villanueva, Filer, or Banner, unless Banner is the backup and he's coming in really cheap. So I think regardless of who you choose, you're basically saying the other two guys, you're on the back burner.
Right. I mean, there's like we said, there's a good opportunity. I mean, there's a good chance that multiple of all three of those, or at least two of those guys, Banner and Filer, are gone, and Villanueva too, for that matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a real possibility of that. But I don't think it's reasonable to expect you lose all three guys. I think you retain at least one of those, Filer, Banner, Villanueva.
Possible, yeah.
I mean, if you don't, then your line is you're really starting from scratch, because then you're in that scenario where you're needing a lot of young guys to step up and you're needing a lot of outside help with draft, free agency to plug a lot of holes. And that's an uncomfortable spot. So who knows? Again, I don't mean I took you off the rabbit hole there, looking ahead. But looking to this year, yeah, if I was kicked back out to right tackle, Wisniewski probably is your left guard, and Dotson likely to be a backup in that scenario.
Okay, and look, I mean, Dotson is a guy. Here's the thing. These things have a funny way of working themselves out, as we say time and time again. You just hope that it's not injury related. But as a whole, when you look at this group top to bottom, talking about the offensive line and at least the top eight as how they sit here right now, this isn't a bad group at all to have. Yeah, you're losing Ramon Foster. Yeah, you got a question mark about Filer moving over to left guard. I think he's going to be fine there. I really do. Strong as an ox. It's too bad we don't have the 5 preseason games to see some of this or some of these other guys. But I think he's going to be fine. I think Villanueva will be fine at left tackle. I think whoever wins that right tackle spot will be fine. Look, I mean, Filer impressed some people. He surprised me with what he did at right tackle, so far. But I mean, top to bottom, how would you rate this position group?
Yeah, there's certainly more uncertainty here than there's been in recent years, but that's just because the bar was set so high for really rare for multiple years for your offensive line, your starting 5 just to be unchanged. You just knew the starting 5 year in, year out. These were the guys that were going to play well. Case closed. Let's move on. This year there is a lot more to talk about, but I think there's still talent there. I'm confident with Filer at left guard, confident with Filer or Villanueva at left tackle, Pouncey at center, DeCastro right guard. It just comes down to that right tackle job, and can someone step up? I imagine that between those two guys, someone is going to step up. Both Banner and Okorafor are talented. I think someone's going to be able to really, grab hold of that right tackle job. So, yeah, I think the line will hopefully play better than last year for the schematic reasons, for the benefit of Ben and him putting the line in better situations and protections and stuff like that. So short answer is that this line should still be – it's not going to be at its prime a few years ago, but it should still be a strength of this offense.
Stefan Wisniewski, a better guard or a better center?
I would say guard, but he's a slightly worse BJ Finney to me, where he's backup caliber basically, and that's ideal for him, who can come in and play guard and play center, and you're not too worried about it when he has to. I view him as a better guard as well too, which was exactly what I viewed BJ Finney as. Better guard than he is center. People will say, well, what? I think we got this question last night on the live stream. What would you do about a guy like potentially like Kelvin Beachum? And my answer would be, I lost recollection that he was. I still thought he had one season left, but he's actually a free agent looking for work now. One would think that he'd probably land a job here for too much longer, right? Yeah, I haven't followed his situation too closely. He's probably just maybe waiting for an injury to pop up for him to have a better opportunity. I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't see Beachum reunion in Pittsburgh happening. And again, I think I don't think you had anyone to any position, offense or defense, until you go into camp. You evaluate your roster, you see what you have, you deal with injuries and all that. I think you have 8 guys right now who are going to make the roster, and unless that changes, you're probably just going to roll with those guys and see if a 9th steps up.
I would think that in order for the people asking about Beachum, I think it would take an injury or two for that to happen. And I mean, look, Kelvin Beachum is salt of the earth kind of guy, right? I mean, very much I think has become a technician over the years, and the fact that and we were talking about this on the live stream last night. I mean, I remember back to. Boy, yeah, I'm sure you can find some of the stuff on Steelers Depot as well too. Charting him, right out of the chute, that rookie preseason of his. And I think his first work actually came at left guard in the preseason, and it was just. You talk about penalties and just poor play. I think the thing that stuck out to me the most were the penalties first, and then the poor play. That's how many penalties that I think he had there. I didn't have him making, I don't think, the initial 53-man roster that year. Okay. And for him to progress, you obviously became the Steelers' left tackle, and Lord knows how things would have maybe worked out for him had he not suffered that injury. What was it against the Cardinals? Was it that year that he that gave birth?
It was a Cardinals game. Yeah,
that gave birth to Alejandro Villanueva, if you will. But even so, is the guy? Do I still want to tie my wagon to him being a 16-game starter at one of the tackle positions? Probably not. But he would be probably the next tier kind of option should you suffer an injury or two.
Mm-hmm. This is from August 11th, 2013. Just pulled this up super quickly here, just reading this along with you guys here for the first time. This is looking back at the Pittsburgh Steelers' first preseason game against the New York Giants. Below are 6 things that really surprised me. Look at Dave Bryan back in 2013. Got a Justin Cheadle reference in here.
Am I going to run from this or what?
No, I don't think so. This is the part on Beachum. I'm just going to read it to you and your reaction to it. Because you write in quote, after working quite a bit at the center position during the offseason, I don't believe Kelvin Beachum saw any snaps there against the Giants. We shall see what the charting says, but I think he spent all of his time at right tackle. That was your notes on Beachum from that Giants game.
Okay. What year was that?
2013.
Let me see if we can find 14. How many snaps? I don't think he played.
Does not say the snaps.
Let's see. Steelers preseason, because I know he got some work on the left side of that line.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. I mean, he moving around. I mean, I don't doubt that at all. Clearly, he was playing some center and right tackle. I know he played some guard. I mean, I don't think you're wrong about that.
Left tackle against. He started left tackle against the Bills the second preseason game.
Okay.
And I think in that same game, he kicked inside some to guard there. Let's see, against the Eagles in the third preseason game. He started again at left tackle in the what year were we talking here? 2000 what?
The post I read was from 2013.
Okay, 2013. Okay, wait a minute here. I'm in 2014.
Okay.
Let me see here. The Giants. It's not. He obviously didn't start that preseason game there. Redskins. Let's look at the second one there. Yeah, he didn't start it because you had Mike Adams. Remember, that's when you had the old Mike Adams at left tackle kind of thing. So it really doesn't tell us. The game book doesn't tell us the snap breakdown per position. Just says tackle obviously next to his name there. But it did list him as a guard for most of that preseason there in the game book.
This is from 2012, and again, just reading it here, you talk about Beachum's struggles. It said Beachum is not only struggling with his blocking assignments, but with penalties as well, as his 5 penalties lead the Steelers through 2 preseason games. He was flagged 3 times in total against the Eagles. Of his 5 penalties, 4 have been for holding, with the remaining 1 being for a false start. And yeah, you're making some reference here to guard. You're saying, quote, the guard spot is entirely new to him after he played solely at left tackle during his college career. So yeah, I think you're right on this one.
Okay.
Good memory. And I think because I was reading from 2013, this is from 2012. So,
all right, yeah, that's where you had me confused there. Okay.
Yeah, I was just trying to pull things up there on the fly, but yeah. So yeah, interesting, but good. More to the point, yeah, good for Beachum to have this longevity, a 7th round pick, undersized tackle. The odds were stacked against him. He's had a fantastic NFL career, a great guy off the field, does amazing community work. I think back home a lot in Texas, but I don't see him coming to Pittsburgh unless there are significant and serious injuries.
I would have lost a lot of money had you bet me Kelvin Beachum would have made the money that he has made, and started the amount of games that he started at left tackle at that way back during his rookie, really his rookie season as a whole.
Yeah, the Steelers have had so many of those success stories, whether you're talking Beachum, Villanueva, Hubbard, Finney, and now I think Filer and Banner are next in line to share in that story and that financial security.
And I've never viewed him really as a guard option. Now, I know he had to learn all those positions. Look, it was in his best interest to kind of do that and kind of learn center and all like that with all that was going on during his time in there. But yeah, make no mistake about it at this point right now when it comes to Kelvin Beachum. He is a tackle, really, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, Dave. Anything else with the offensive line? I think we covered that group pretty well. Those are the battles.
Yeah, I just hope those guys stay healthy, because if they do, I think this team can run a lot of gap stuff, right? Effectively, they can run some man stuff with running a bunch of duo kind of stuff. I mean, they can pretty much run it all. The pin and pull stuff. We obviously don't see a lot of outside zone, and really they're not an outside zone team right now. But I think with Filer at least now potentially at left guard, it gives you a chance maybe to get him on the move a little bit more than say you would have a Ramon Foster. I think out of just not wanting to run the wheels off of Foster, they didn't pull him as much. Now Foster, to his credit, throughout his career, he ended up being a better puller than what I ever gave him credit for. Now, he just wasn't asked to do it a lot. I think you can become a little bit more. What I would like to see is potentially, can this team become a little bit more ambidextrous with the counter and the power with Filer in there as opposed to Foster? I think that's. Have you listened to Greg Cosell talk about offensive line and schemes?
Not recently, no.
Man, it's great anytime you get a chance to listen to Greg Cosell talk about that. But it got me thinking last night, because I think Cosell just this past week was a guest on the Ross Tucker podcast. And anytime I could listen to Greg Cosell, I try to, because that guy's really got a great depth of knowledge here. And I was just thinking to myself, potentially with Filer, is that something that you would like to see? I mean, look, we know this team is based in man and gap scheme blocking schemes for the most part. Now, and obviously zone, and particularly inside zone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And to be a good offensive line, you've got to be able to do all 3 of those things.
I think
some level of success. Obviously you're going to have a bread and butter, probably more so over in one of those three schemes.
Sure. Like anything else, versatility and unpredictability are helpful for your offense.
Would you like to see more left guard on the move?
Sure. I think to be more even-handed and, again, less predictable helps. I think you're right. I think Filer's going to be better, and they'll be more willing to do some of that stuff with Filer as opposed to Ramon Foster, who wasn't terrible at it, but probably didn't fit the ideal. Certainly isn't David DeCastro. So yeah, I think you'll see a little bit more than that. Obviously, DeCastro's going to be the majority puller the majority of the time. But yeah, if you can mix it up a little bit and throw some different looks, and if there's a particular weakness where you think you can attack it better with Fowler than DeCastro, then I'm all for it.
And look, I mean, I have I have nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with watching David DeCastro on the move. I mean, it's a thing of beauty, especially when the power of the counter works to him being on the move from right to left. But with that said, Villanueva's still not the run blocking tackle, left tackle. If there's anything you want to ding him on whatsoever when it comes to Villanueva at left tackle, it's his run blocking. All right. So I guess what I'm getting at is I would like to be able to look back about halfway through this season and say, man, this team has had some success running counter and power to the right side.
Yeah, I'm all for that wholeheartedly. So we'll see. First, it just means that Fowler has to stay at left guard, and that means that someone's done well enough to win that right tackle job to keep Fowler at left guard. And I think you start from there, and that's the foundation of how this line's got to be built this year.
To wrap a ball around this, which do you view of man, gap, and zone? Which do you view this offensive line being the best at?
Well, I think they've always done great with their gap scheme with DeCastro. Always at the old Georgia counter, or whatever they would call it. They've been running that forever. So it's not something they run all the time, and it works better versus certain defenses than other defenses. But, to me, their base is basically inside zone paired with that gap scheme.
Right. How would their man scheme be the weakest of the three?
Well, I mean, gap is a man scheme, but I understand your point. You're just talking more like duo blocks. I don't have a great grade to judge it one way or the other. I would say it's less frequently done than their gap in their inside zone scheme. So not that they can't do it, but they just probably do a little bit less of it if I had to guess.
All right. I thought we owed to go kind of next level into that and talk a little bit more about scheme, which we did.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. All right, so that's the offensive line talk. Dave, I want to flip over to the defensive line and just touch on something with Daniel McCullers. Spent a lot of time talking about McCullers, largely because of Mike Tomlin's comments about the nose tackle position, and we were thinking about how we know that Tyson Alualu's probably going to be your starting nose tackle. That's my guess of it right now, which means that McCullers will be a backup yet again. And I think I had posed this question on Friday's podcast about just, how long has somebody been a backup like McCullers has been a backup for? And so I did the research, did the study, and it's a little wordy, so stay with me here, guys. But this is the most games played by a defensive lineman with 3 or fewer starts who played on just one team. So just a defensive lineman who was a career backup for one team and just hung on to that one team for a very long time. And McCullers currently ranks 5th on that list with 73 career games, 3 starts, all in Pittsburgh. And if he goes through this season, plays 10 games, he'll be 2nd on that list, only behind Mark Pike, I think, of the Bills. He was kind of more of a special teamer, edge rusher, linebacker type, so a little technicality there. But the point is, it's just very rare for McCullers or anyone to be a backup the way McCullers has been for this long with one team.
What was our buddy Chris Hoke?
That's a good question. He started more. He started more than 3 games in his career, I'm sure. Let me look up his stats, though, because he did not come up in my research at all. So I assume he didn't qualify. He had 18 career starts. He started 10 games is 2004. I guess Casey got hurt that year or something?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So that immediately kind of disqualified him. And from the rest of his career, yeah, he started, no games in 05, 1 in 06 and 07, 3 in 08. So he kind of was more of that, reserve role, obviously. But at least the guy started more than McCullers, who's got, again, 3 career starts through, what are we going on, year 7?
And I assume hopefully Hokey Bro continues to, I think he still listens to us and all like that. But you want to talk about a quintessential kind of guy to have on a defensive line back then,
Right.
I still am, as far as playing, outside zone and stuff like that, nobody I don't think was more technical when it comes, especially, I really think kind of maybe league wide as well too. Back in the old 3-man Okie fronts and all like that, no one was really better at playing the outside zone than he was over the nose.
Right. Yeah. And although he wasn't much of a starter because he wasn't playing behind Casey besides that first year, I mean, the guy still played more than McCullers. The point is, what I'm just trying to make is that it's just, what is this team hoping to get out of Daniel McCullers at this point? Shouldn't they have seen all they've seen with him? Or are they hoping for some big breakout or thinking he can really take that next step? I mean, at what point do you just say, you know what, we've done all we can. There's been some improvement. It's been better the last 2 years with Carl Dunbar than John Mitchell, but this is a career backup who we just do not trust to be the starter. Let's try to find someone else. That's the point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, and it's a heck of an indictment, for Tom. I don't see how Tomlin could have chose different ways to kind of word that and make it seem a little bit more favorable.
He's not here to sugarcoat it.
That's I know.
I don't blame him.
Right. I mean, that's why I say it's a heck of an indictment.
Yeah.
There were a dozen different ways he could have chose to say that where you would say, well, maybe there's some hope for Dan McCullers, but there's just, I mean, we're talking about a guy in Alulu who we're really not, breaking out the pom-poms for, I don't think, excited about see him play 30% of the snaps at nose tackle, right?
Yeah, I'm not breaking out the pom-pom sword, but I don't think McCullers can be the starting nose tackle. I just don't think it's going to fit within the Steelers scheme. I'm still planning to do a video on that maybe later this week, next week, but it's not going to work based on the demands of how defenses and fronts work today with more stunts and penetrating and one-gapping type looks and the old school two-gapping.
And that's where I'm going is the fact that, man, you got a guy like Alulu who's barely played the position, going to get
essentially has not actually played that position.
Right. Is going to get the first team snaps when camp opens. Do you have to if that's a motivational tool this deep into Dan McCullers' career, right, man, you
got bigger problems.
You got bigger problems there. I mean, what is the legitimate chance, and it always has been a chance, and it seems to be a chance every offseason, but of course he's beating the odds. I mean, what are the chances that Dan just does not make this roster this year?
I still think low because I don't know who's going to take that spot. Is it going to be Carlos Davis? Is it going to be someone else? I just think he's going to hang out the way that he's hung out every year in his career so far.
Man, if he does, that's a lot to pay a guy just to hang out. And I know in the grand scheme, it's not that huge of big of money, but when it comes to the Steelers right now, it is. Because look, I mean, you talk about replacing them with let's say Carlos Davis shows you anything, and I know that's asking a lot right now at this point, especially with no offseason and all like that, right. Or even let's say a guy like Kayvon Walker or who else could potentially be a guy that prevents you that helps prevent you from carrying McCullers. Who's a guy that can get
Taylor's his last name?
Yeah.
The dude's name?
No, I don't have it on the tip of my
tongue. 6'9", Calvin Taylor. That's what it is.
Okay, you mean from Kentucky, right? Or was he from?
Oh, what did I say? Ole Miss? Yeah, Kentucky.
Okay, that's where you threw me off there.
Yeah.
If you could get anything out, because look, you got to have some level of versatility, though, right? And I mean, Dan's just not only he's just not versatile as much, and when you use him in stunts and all, he's not versatile there.
Mm-hmm. It's a lack of versatility in position and in terms of schematic flexibility, in terms of stunts and one gapping that you just can't do with him.
Because overall, too, how many snaps, let alone snaps that he's played as a true 3-4 front nose tackle there, they have not played him a lot of snaps in sub package either, as one of the two, and that's an indictment too, I think, overall. I mean, and pretty much matches what we've known all along here. So I guess what I'm getting at is now that, because we're coming up on a time where we're going to have to do a couple more of these 53-man roster predictions, right? I guess what I'm hitting at here is I've got a lot of reasons to potentially not put Dan on my next 53.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's just assume McCullers is on the 53 as that 6 defensive lineman. Is he active on game day, or do you put bugs over?
That's a great question. I mean, if you're going to keep him, to me, you're doing so because, you're probably going to want to make him dressed, I would think.
Right. To be your quote-unquote backup nose tackle. But then you're going to sit down, I think, a much more talented and valuable guy like Isaiah Buggs.
A more versatile
Isaiah Buggs. And in theory, but if you do sit McCullers, then if Olu went down, then what do you do? Do you or do you just not run 3-4 the rest of that game?
Yeah, that's a great question, and hopefully we'll never find the answer to it. But these, famous words of mine, is it funny? These things have funny ways. I would think that Wormley would potentially be your next guy up.
Yeah, but again, dressing Dan McCullers over Isaiah Buggs, I think, just isn't worth it, because I want Buggs to get the reps. I think he's the better player, and I'm just not seeing the value there with McCullers.
I mean, look, and against when we do these 53-man rosters, it's more so what we think the team will do, not what we will do, because nobody gives a damn what we would do,
right?
Or they should, and really they shouldn't. Trying to predict, these mock drafts and all like that. You and I, and really the rest of the staff as well too, have been conditioned over the years to try to predict what we think the Steelers will do for the most part, not what we would do individually. And when you look at it kind of objectively, like in our last 53s hit, it was hard to not put Dan on the 53, and I know I did. You had him on your 53, I think,
yep.
Right? There's good reason now that Tomlin has said what he has said, and that Dan's no longer the quote-unquote leader in the clubhouse. There's good reason not to have, I think, Dan on the 53. The only question is who do you replace him with?
But he's never been the leader in the clubhouse, and he's still made the roster. So
right.
It doesn't change the equation for him.
Yeah, but I mean, you get this. You hit on it. You get this long into it. I mean. What exactly would you say that you do here, Bob?
And again, McCullers has played better the last 2 years. I don't want to. I raved about his training camps the last 2 years. I gave him really high grades for showing more physicality, intensity, down-to-down consistency. I mean, he has been legitimately better, but it is still not good enough. And the fact that they still don't even really entertain the idea of him being a nose tackle, as you said, is the indictment on where they think he's at.
Right, and we were waiting for some sort of sign, whatever the technicality you want to look at it with him, you had up until Tomlin spoke last week, you had to consider Dan the leader in the clubhouse. Well, now officially he's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I think regardless of whatever Tomlin says, just on paper, McCullers cannot function as a modern day nose tackle, because when you talk about nose tackle, and Tomlin mentions this all the time with the position and the changing of the guard, is that position needs versatile. You need to be versatile. You need versatility, and McCullers does not have that positionally or schematically.
Correct.
So we'll see. Just interesting study there. Just fifth most games of basically career backups with one team, and you just wonder how much longer the Steelers are going to hang on for.
How long did it take you to research that one out? Too long?
No, not that bad. Like 20 minutes, not that bad. Pro Football Reference has been a very good tool, and they're going to a paid version. That makes me very sad. All right,
we'll pay it. We'll pay it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because that's where I get my stats of the weird from. Another article I wrote, Dave, recently. This was on Monday, and I just wanted to take the chance here in the kind of the middle of the offseason to talk about this. 3 rising stars among the Steelers coaching staff. 3 names that most Steelers fans probably don't know, aren't very familiar with, but names you probably should know, because they'll be moving up the ranks potentially with other teams, unfortunately, but potentially in Pittsburgh. Those 3 coaches I listed are Denzel Martin, a coaching assistant, Blaine Stewart, a coaching assistant who served as co-receivers coach last year, and Dennis McGinnis, a scouting intern. So you can check out that article and just read about some guys who I think are rising up the ranks on the Steelers coaching side of things.
Yeah, good article there, for sure.
And I had somebody ask me about GM, and it's another article I'll write at some point, maybe not this offseason, but still think Brandon Hunt would be the in-house favorite to take over Kevin Colbert.
I can't see where that didn't happen.
Yeah. Do you think they could go out of house? Now. I mean, what was I couldn't find this. Donahue. Was it Donahue? Donahoe? I don't know his name.
Yeah.
Okay. Was he in Pittsburgh when they hired him to be GM, or did he come from the outside? Do you know? I couldn't really find that information last night. I was trying to poke around.
Repeat the question.
Where did he come from? Was he an in-house hire to be GM, or did he come from the outside, from a different organization to be hired as GM back in
I don't remember
the 90s?
I'll have to look in the papers for that. I don't remember the specifics on that. I'm drawing a blank on that.
Okay, because I know Colbert was obviously out-of-house. He was with Detroit. So there's no guarantee this team stays in-house. I mean, precedent, granted, it's one GM over 20 years. I mean, it's not a whole lot to go off of, but they could go out-of-house. I mean, so I don't want to assume that they're going to stick in-house, but I think if they do, and there's a decent chance of that, I think Brandon Hunt's the guy. And yes, Omar Khan could be in the mix as well, but I think they probably want someone more on the football scouting side of things, which is Hunt's wheelhouse.
So your question is what got him up through the ranks, or
no? Was he already in Pittsburgh when they hired him? Was it promoted from within, or was he was he with another organization and they hired him to be the GM of the Steelers? Or whatever they were calling it back then.
I'll have to look that up. I don't remember.
Okay. I'd just be curious to know, because I know Colbert was an outside hire. I don't know if Donahue was or not. But not that it matters a whole lot. I just like to know these things. Okay. All right. So check out that article on the three rises. And again,
you got me curious now. So.
Yeah. And with Martin, he was a scouting intern to start. Tomlin met him at a pro day at Missouri. That's where Martin was at, and really made a big impression on him. And now he's a coaching assistant, so he's kind of starting to move up a little bit. Blaine Stewart, I think, is probably going to be a college positional coach sometime next year. There was a chance he was going to take the receiver's job at West Virginia this past year. It fell through at the last second. But both those guys, Martin and Stewart, have worked at the Shrine Game. That's going to build up a lot of connections, give them a lot of doors opening. And so I think both those guys could potentially be working somewhere other than Pittsburgh next year, especially Blaine Stewart. And McInnes, probably less to go off of. He's been a scouting intern for a few years now, went to Oregon. And then I think Colbert just made a pass about him working with some of the bigger name scouts during the pre-draft process. That was kind of interesting. So just a name to keep an eye on.
Remind me to talk about that Donahoe thing in the next podcast.
Okay. Yeah, just because I don't know his whole background. I know how things ended in Pittsburgh, very ugly with him and Gower. I don't know how things began with him in Pittsburgh. I'd be curious to know.
Let's see. Donahue, this is from Donahoe, December 28th, 1991. The next coach of the Steelers likely will have less authority than Chuck Noll and a new boss to answer to. Steelers president Dan Rooney said yesterday that he will probably give Donahoe, his director of football development, more control of the team.
So in-house. Looks like that was in-house.
Yeah, we should get to the situation where we have someone like Tom Donahue who's going to take a more active role in the football operation, Rooney said. Rooney will not name Donahoe the general manager because he does not like the term, but said he will consider the title of director of football operations.
Right. That was the old title that Colbert got for the longest time, too.
Right.
Okay, so it was an in-house hire.
Yeah, there you go. How about that? How's that for a quick from the Steelers Depot research department?
Man of one. That is service with a smile, 30 minutes or less, or it's free. And it's free anyway.
You know me. You get me on some of these things, and I will drop everything. I'll push my wife down on the sidewalk to try to find the answer on some of this stuff.
Tiff's gonna use that against you in court one day. I'm just letting you know. No, I'm the same way. I mean, I will go down rabbit holes that just big time wastes. But thank you for that information.
I couldn't let that one go unanswered there.
Yeah. All right. Let me write that one down because I don't want to forget it and make you do the research again. In-house hire. Okay. Dave, let's transition to something more relevant. Anthony McFarland, pass protection. You've done a study on him. No, there's not a lot of tape to go off, which we kind of expected, but there is some tape to look at. Anthony McFarland in pass pro. Very big sticking point for rookie running backs. How is he grading out?
It's one of those round to-its. You ever have problem working with those round to-its? Well, I finally got around to it. And
you had Tom Donahue information.
There you go. But I've been meaning to put this together, and with the way the off season has gone and all like that, got a little bit more time, and finally have circled back around to the Maryland tape. And this is 2019 Maryland tape only, what I'm looking at, and I'm doing this in 3-game sets, and I already have 9 of the 12 games knocked out. I'm 3 segments into this thing, and all 3 of those obviously are up on SteelersDepot.com right now. And I think you and I initially, when we talked, I don't know how it's been a couple of weeks ago, because I had to kind of put this series a little bit on the back burner there, but we talked about how I thought the initial look at that look at Anthony McFarland and his pass blocking was there was a few Easter eggs, I thought, in there. A couple of positive signs, if you will. Well, the deeper that I get into this, and albeit, once again, I have gone through 9 games. One of those games he sat out against Indiana because of the ankle injury, so technically now 8 games. Quite a few of those games, they were either blowing out people or on the other end of a blowout. So that obviously resulted in him not seeing a lot of second half time in several of these games. And that has kind of, and look, just in what, asking a back to be in a certain situation like that, just kind of few and far between in a game anyway, there's really not that many plays in total to look at, that aren't him exiting the backfield and chipping on his way out, that kind of stuff. And I wanted to look at just kind of true pass protection plays, if you will. How many do I have in total? Like 15 plays, I think, so far? Right
12
around
12 or 15.
For the most part, I think the thing that sticks out the most to me, and I take it you've watched all these plays as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm a bit surprised. There's a little bit more there than what I expected, especially with a guy with his stature and all, because he's not a big kid. Now he's put together nicely, kind of like a fire plug, if you will. But overall, I like the effort with him. I like the willingness there, and I like the overall kind of wherewithal of kind of knowing who he's supposed to get there. Now, have a lot of these reps gone totally in his favor? No. In fact, I think the game against Minnesota, I think the first clip that I have up in this most recent segment on him is him having to pick up quickly at that a linebacker coming up the middle, and he does what I think he's supposed to do, and that's win initially and get that linebacker turned out of the pocket. Now, in totality, does he win the rep? No, because and you would expect the starting inside linebacker to quickly dispose of a guy like McFarland, if you will. And he does. He does get around him. He ends up, unfortunately, getting a hit on the quarterback after the quarterback released the football, and the quarterback goes down injured and has to leave the game. So let's take that rep specifically here. How would you view that rep?
I do view it as an ultimate loss. I think McFarland initially did well, as you would say, kind of eating up grass, stepping into the hole there. Turning him out, turning him away from the quarterback. Just couldn't finish it. I'm not sure, 100% sure if maybe his feet stopped. He just kind of started to forward lean there and lost it. But he did ultimately lose the rep. I think that's a loss for McFarland.
All right. I mean, he's not. I think going into this, we didn't expect much, right? But after looking at the 12, 15 clips, where is he at? Here's my narrative on him so far with 3 games left to look at on him. He's got the willingness. He's got some ability there. I think there's a nice cut in one of these that he does. Not all the time will he step up and eat up that grass like he should. You just can't sit there, especially a guy at his size, and catch. You just can't sit back and catch these guys.
I noticed him on his heels a lot whenever on contact. He's leaning back a little bit.
Right. He's got to get more in a habit of working himself moving forward and being on his toes. Yeah. Now, on 2 of these, I don't think the plan was for him to initially pass block. I think he just got kind of saddled with it. I think one of them, you'll see a tight end get beat. He's kind of left to help pick up the pieces there on the defensive end. One of those, I think, was against, who was it, Michigan, I think. And then on another one, it was a defensive tackle. I mean, the defensive tackle does a nice push-pull at the line, beats the left guard, and then McFarland's kind of left to, all right, I gotta kind of body up on this guy if I can there. So that's two of the reps in itself. Two more of the reps I know specifically were him kind of having to be kind of a speed bump, if you will, on design rollouts where you just kind of, drifting along out there. And the first one I think came against Howard in that first game of part of this series. And he did a good job. He did what he's supposed to do. The game against, I think, was it Minnesota? Him and the H-back, I think, kind of got messed up of who's going to get who, and the guy comes free there. So, I mean, that's two more reps right there. But kind of my takeaway in all this has been so far, man, the guy's willing to at least step in there. Now, one of these reps, too, he runs up and he kind of just lowers his head,
Yeah.
And that's just an awful rep, you're going to get yourself hurt and run over both in the same instance there. Mm-hmm. But I think going back and my overall takeaway so far, once again, we're not talking a lot of reps here, is there's a willingness there and there is some ability and there is some wherewithal kind of being cognizant of what he's supposed to do. And I think all three of those things are good signs with him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's a foundation, there's a base to work with. The first part of pass protection for running backs, and we've talked about this before, Dave, is 1-2. You have to want to do it, and it's the dirty work. It's not fun. It's not what running backs really get paid for. It's not what they're no one's highlight reel in high school is them pass protecting, but you have to do it sometimes. And I think McFarland has that 1-2. He is a tough guy. We know he's a tough guy because he played with that ankle injury last year. He's a tough dude willing to mix it up. There are just some size and technique limitations. I think he's going to have a better base. Like I said, he's on his heels too much on contact. He's got to keep his eyes up. You got to see what you hit. Those are things, of course, you can work on. So is he ever going to be great at it? No, as you said on the live stream yesterday, he's never going to be Le'Veon Bell or any sort of upper echelon back. But can he be serviceable enough and get in the way enough and just have that 1-2 and not be a Dre Archer type? I think absolutely he can be. I think he's shown that on tape. So he's not going to be someone that is going to do a lot of pass pro. To mitigate pass pro, you get him on route. So if a linebacker wants to blitz, then you just throw it to him hot instead. That's a good way to kind of get around guys who aren't great in pass protection, or if the linebacker has to run with you. Because sometimes those blitzes are those hug blitzes, or
right, green dog, right?
Yeah, where if the back stays in, then the linebacker just goes ahead and blitz. So if you release the back enough, then you're going to help, not let that linebacker blitz, and you kind of take care of the problem that way. So the point is, I think he's got a foundational level to work with. It's going to be good enough for what he's going to be asked to do.
Right, and look, I mean, you don't want him out there against Vincent Williams, backs on backers.
I wanted to put him in that, yeah. Not on game day, but in practice.
Right, but maybe 2 reps at most all summer.
I want Williams kicking his butt just because.
Yeah, I don't know if I want. I think we know what I think he's setting himself up to. For a losing opportunity and potentially maybe getting hurt there.
Don't live in your fears.
Yeah, look, I
get your point.
I want it once or twice just to see if he's man enough to accept the challenge. I think we all know how it's probably going to play out. Sure. If given those kind of reps there. Here's the thing: there is enough on tape and hopefully enough reps maybe in preseason where maybe you can get at least enough confidence in him to put him in a few of those potential. You're not going to go out there with the idea, well, we can't wait to get him out there to pass protect, but blitzes happen, green dog, those kind of situations. You want a guy that's at least you have a little bit of faith on that he'll see it and go after and at least cut, Mm-hmm. At least cut those legs out, or at least give your quarterback that extra 0.7 seconds in the situation there, and prevent a hit from happening there. So I think that's been my biggest takeaway, and you stated it right. It's what I said on a live stream Monday night there. This guy's not going to be Le'Veon Bell. It's foolish to even expect that. But I think from kind of the stuff, and I always like doing these too because it lets me go back and look at some of the post-draft rush scouting reports on this dude. It lets you know who didn't watch film on this guy.
Yeah. How many more parts of the series are coming? I didn't check
There's
that
just the one more, just the
one?
three,
Okay.
the last 3 games, and
so you're through most of your footage on him.
right on to 2019. And I really don't. I mean, is there a reason to go back into 2018? I mean,
Nah, I think you probably. I mean, you would see more because he played more, but I think we've learned enough that we would just be not really learning anything new by going through 2018.
right. So by the end of this week, I hope to have that final segment of those final 3 games out on him.
Looking forward to it. All right, Dave. Anything else you want to talk about, or we can get to some reader emails to close out the show?
Have we gotten it? Have we done it? Have we made it through?
I think so. I think we've made it through.
All right. Jelani Suleiman back in my email says, "Hey, Dave and Alex, love the show. As always, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on if you guys think this defense can be better than the 2008 defense. I know it's a lofty goal, being that 2008 defense ranked first in almost every major defensive category. Also, who do you guys think will make a bigger second-year leap, Devin Bush or Deontay Johnson?" Let's see. As always, thank you for the Steelers content. Keep up the great work. Hey, comparing to the 2008 defense, you're looking at a much different scheme. Running the football was a little bit more prevalent still at the time, as well too. Have we have enough years passed where it's probably going to be unfair to compare the two?
So those comparisons are always very difficult to do for obvious reasons. I think this defense can be an elite group again, and I think the definitions have changed slightly because I think in today's day and age, it's offenses are going to move the football. You can't stop Patrick Mahomes from moving the football. I think a defense today has to win in situational football. I think third down, red zone. I think about turnovers, and I think this is all areas where the Steelers defense can and will and has succeeded last season. So yeah, I think it can be an elite defense as it was last year. How do you want to compare that to 08? Let's just go through this defense and see what happens. But the potential to be the best defensive football, this team absolutely has it.
I think there's a possibility this could be the best defense since 2008.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. I think it's.
And I've put this on Twitter several times, and we've talked about it as well too, with the amount of returning players. I think this has an opportunity to be a very, very good defense. It'll be disappointing if this is not top 3 when the dust settles, and really, I like the chances of it being the top defense in the league overall, especially when it comes to, I think it could be them and the Patriots when it comes to that adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat that I like. Now, turnovers, you're going to have a little luck involved, I think, but I think we saw that a couple of those balls bouncing up in the air last year that were picked off, I think were created turnovers.
Yeah, you create your own luck, it's the old saying.
Right. So there's a possibility that happens. I don't know how else to put it. I am very, very, very bullish on this defense this year. If they can play a little bit better against the run, in certain aspects, as Alex said, look, this defense there's probably going to be a few opportunities. They're going to be put on quick changes on short fields. Can they at least hold oppositions to field goals? Obviously that's going to be huge. Red zone type defense there as well too. And can they at least provide the offense some short field opportunities there? But I think everybody's gotten the picture now. You and I are bullish on this defense.
Yeah, and I think most people are, and as they should be. To the second part of the question about Bush or Johnson, I think you could make a case for both. I'll lean Deontay just because he's catching passes from Ben this year, which is a world of difference from what he was doing last year. But I think both will take big strides in year 2.
I think it's Deontay too, because of Devin. You would just I expect Devin to get better, but I don't know that he'll make as big of a quote unquote jump as a potential Deontay will, just from the sheer fact of having better quarterback play. We saw Deontay, and I'm starting to wrap up wind down that series, that contextualization on Deontay Johnson and all of his targets from last year as well too. Boy, he did a lot of good stuff to get separation, and if he's able to do that again and refine his route running and be a little bit more physical guy with the weight gain and all like that, you can't help but think that he's got the potential to be, as we've talked about, an 80, 90 catch guy potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the future's very bright for both guys. I think there are definitely big strides for Bush to take. Being a 3-down linebacker, being a communicator will be a step up for him. So he'll do some things probably that we won't get to see necessarily. That'll be big for him in his development. But yeah, both guys are trending in the right direction.
Jay Bombardi writes in, what a shame that this year we can't go to camp this year, and we'll have basically he's saying we're going to miss Watt versus Watt backs on backers.
That's a great point.
Think they'll release a video. We can only hope.
No.
I don't know if they'll release the video or not. You would have to think if if they're able to keep the media out of there, they'll release some stuff. I mean, they'll have to release some stuff. I don't know if we'll be.
No, not of action stuff. We weren't allowed to at St. Vincent.
Well, then maybe not. You would think just for entertainment value alone, maybe a rep of Watt and Watt backs on backers. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I hope, but I don't know. You'll get just some on-air stuff. Usually it's what they've allowed, and that's what they've allowed in the past. Maybe that changes.
Julio writes in, I hope everyone's staying safe. Thank you for the work that y'all do. I really cannot listen to any other Steelers podcast anymore because they just don't compare. Well, that's what we strive to do, Julio. Thank you for that. Here we go. So, first of all, know where the team stands with Mason. I've heard both of your opinions on trading for another quarterback. That being said, my question is more towards the risk-reward aspect of it. Based on your conversation about Cam Newton and the Patriots getting a third or fifth if he walks. I guess he listened to the live stream because we talked a little bit about Cam Newton and the Patriots situation. He goes on to say getting a third or fifth if he walks and another team signs him, talking about Newton after the 2020 season with the Patriots. He goes, why not trade for Josh Rosen? I get he hasn't shown much, but I feel he's just been with horrible teams. He also has an extra year via the fifth-year option that Mason does not have if Ben is still playing. Maybe Mason is the answer, but maybe he isn't, and there's not much time left to tell before his rookie contract is up. What would you give for Rosen to see if there's anything there? Even if he doesn't work out, walks, couldn't the Steelers recoup a comp pick with him? Look, how are you going to learn anything about Josh Rosen? Would be my immediate answer as to why not trade for him right now. What are you going to learn with Josh Rosen this offseason?
Yeah, again, it just goes back to you got to find out what you have in Rudolph, and he's got to be able to play for you to do that. And in a year where that time may be even more limited than you expected with training camp and preseason uncertain, and who knows what will happen in the regular season, you got to find out with Rudolph. Now, if Rudolph doesn't turn it around and falls flat on his face, then maybe you explore a veteran quarterback, probably not Rosen at the end of the preseason, or certainly start looking for a replacement next off season. But Rudolph has to play this summer. He has to.
I mean, you already got a Josh Rosen on your team. His name is Paxton Lynch, right?
Mm-hmm.
To some degree, right?
Yeah, former high pedigree guy. Yep.
Quick flame out, first rounder. And once again, as Alex and I have talked, I people are wanting a lot of mud. I guess where Julio's coming from is people are not happy with the amount of mud being thrown up against the wall.
What do you mean by that?
They want more mud on the wall to see what mud will stick.
Okay, so they just want any quarterback. Just let's see if this guy can work. Okay, I see what you're saying.
They want more mud. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my confidence in Rudolph is lower than the team's confidence, but I recognize that you have to see, is he really the guy that played last year and struggled so much, or is he better than that because of the context of, his newness to playing on Sundays and the injuries to the offense and everything he went through with Earl Thomas and Myles Garrett and yada yada. So big summer for Rudolph.
People can continue getting on the radio and saying Steelers need to sign this guy or should have signed this guy, didn't sign that guy, shame on them. You can get on, you can write these posts and articles. You can say just Mason outright sucks, don't know what the Steelers see in him. Whatever you want to do right now at this point, it's not going to change a damn thing. Kevin Colbert has and Rooney and Tomlin have stuck to what the narrative they've had on the backup quarterback situation really since last season ended. At this point, we're just going to have to wait and see what the outcome is now. barring an injury happening right now of significance, and barring really Rudolph just coming out during the summer and just falling flat on his face, this team's not going to do anything. So it really becomes a situation where this is just, it's all the decisions or non-decisions that have been made in the last however many months are going to have to, it becomes a situation where it's going to be in analyzation mode, right? I mean, because nothing else is going to happen. We sit and wait and look at the outcome now and wait for it.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think you just got to see what Rudolph does. Maybe he looks like a completely different guy. Maybe he looks like the same guy. But you have to find that out. And bringing in somebody else now is not going to let you do that. This team's got to figure out what they have in Rudolph, good, bad, ugly, and this is the time to do it.
I mean, there is no more analysis that needs to really take place until, God forbid, Mason Rudolph or somebody has to take a meaningful snap in an NFL game during the 2020 season.
Well, I am curious to see how he looks this preseason because he should look good. It should be a world of difference this year.
Right, but
in the
it's
regular
still,
season.
like I said, other than him just totally just looking horrible, it's not going to change the situation. He's still going to be your number 2 quarterback.
Yeah, well, what if he shows the same, maybe not horrible, but just shows those same trouble spots with pocket presence and accuracy and taking more risks downfield? It's not that it's terrible, but it just doesn't look different. That's cause for concern.
Yeah, but we're not even going to – how much of that are we even going to see? Especially, I mean, they've already cut one preseason game. We're not going to be privy to practice. I'm not going to take the word of any of these hacks watching practice should they write about it. Are we going to get 2 preseason games in total? And how much playing time is a guy like Mason going to get in those 2? You would hope a lot. You know,
yeah, well, they haven't even cut it to 2, so I'm just working this under the assumption that there'll be 4. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to gauge. I mean, especially with the lack of eyes this year. But I'm just saying that would be. I'm still going to analyze Rudolph after the preseason.
Okay, but I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is I'm tired of talking about it now because should this team sign Colin Kaepernick, Alex?
Not right now. Again, you want to see what you have with Mason Rudolph, and that is the goal in signing anyone. Kaepernick, other veterans that have been talked about, obviously takes away from that. So my goal right now is to look at Rudolph this preseason, evaluate him, and then we'll make a decision from there.
Okay. I mean, look. I mean, if the team at any point now were to sign a quarterback to this roster, it would go against everything that they've said this entire offseason. Right.
And that's not a Kaepernick thing. I mean, I'm fine with Kaepernick coming back in the league. I hope he gets the opportunity. I think he probably will at some point, but it's not going to be in Pittsburgh.
I don't.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. But it's not going to be in Pittsburgh.
I don't think the tape's there. But anyway, so that's where we are, Julio. I mean, look, I view this more too as people looking. Like I said, I think a lot of people are right now wanting more mud on the wall to choose from to see what sticks, because I think people are fearful that Ben might miss time. You know, look, I mean, make no mistake about it. This 2020 season, comes down to Ben. A lot of it does. As it has since 2004, right? I mean, I know people look back and look at Nick Foles and what happened to the Eagles and all. That's just a one-off. That stuff just does not happen.
Yeah, and just to the idea, Josh Rosen ain't solving your problems. If you're counting on Josh Rosen, you got big problems.
All right. I feel a little relieved, but anyway, getting all that off my chest. Let's see. Here's one from Bryce. Hey, Bryce. Hey, guys. It's Bryce. Keep up the good work. As it stands, how do both of you rate the wide receiver groups in the AFC North? I've got the Browns ranked number 1, the Steelers ranked number 2, the Bengals ranked number 3, and the Ravens last. Mike Tomlin, number 2. Mike Tomlin is number 7 on CBS Sports' coaches list. That's a joke. Any list that doesn't have Mike Tomlin in the top 5 and over John Harbaugh isn't worth the keyboard it's typed on. I think you see what way we come in on that list. I think Tomlin's 5 to 7. I mean, I could stomach 5 to 7 anywhere there. I do think 7's a little disrespectful when it comes to Tomlin, but I see it. Now, any list that would have Tomlin outside the top 7, I think would be really a joke there. So I think that kind of answers that one. Number 3, as it currently stands, if Ali Villanueva goes down for the season, who is best suited on this roster to be the backup left tackle? Is it possible that Chukwuma Okorafor might be more suited to play the left side over the right side? All right, how do you rate the wide receiver groups in the AFC North?
Well, it's interesting that question gets asked because our Josh Carney's going through ranking the rooms he's done for a couple of years now of the AFC North. Here's how he's ranked it. Cincinnati at number 1, Pittsburgh 2, Cleveland 3, Baltimore 4. I would probably disagree maybe fairly significantly, where I would probably have Cleveland still number 1, Pittsburgh maybe in that 2 spot, the Bengals 3, and then I'd go with the Ravens at 4. So off the top of my head, I would go Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Baltimore.
Yeah, I think I would too, because there's still so many question marks about, I mean, really, what do you have in Baltimore that you're hanging your hat on right now?
It's a lot of young guys, Boykin and Brown, and they can play well, but haven't proven a whole lot. With Cleveland, I guess the question is just depth. They have the depth at the position.
Right. I mean, they've got, obviously a couple of good starters for now, at least.
Right.
They do. And look, I mean, Cleveland, Cincinnati's not bad either with Boyd and, obviously Green's still over there. I guess a little bit of maybe depth questions with them as well, right?
Yeah, I think the question is just overall health. I mean, Green's a super talented player, but can he stay healthy? And Ross has had so many injury concerns. Even Boyd, I think, has had some of those concerns. So it's not bad. I think it's a close top 3. You can kind of order it maybe however you want, with maybe Baltimore's a clear-cut 4, but that's how I would order it.
Yeah, I would go Cleveland, Steelers, Bengals, Ravens.
Okay. And to the last part of the question, yeah, Okorafor would be, I think, your backup at left tackle. Is he more suited for a left tackle? It's where he played in college. Maybe he's a little more comfortable there, but at this point, the lines have really blurred a lot between left tackle and right tackle. Good pass rushers exist on both sides, and so it doesn't matter as much as it did even 10 years ago.
Okay, let's time for one more here from Todd Gensler. Hey guys, I must say you've done a good job filling us with information in spite of the pandemic. So thanks. A couple of points. The NFLPA has suggested for players to avoid practicing together, yet Tom Brady continues to work out with his team. I simply think that he is prioritizing winning and realizes that he needs extra work to prepare for the season, considering everybody has already lost so much time. I can't think it's going to be a bad deal in the long run, but only time will tell. Brady's resume speaks for itself. Both he and Ben don't have many more years left. With the virus situation now, it may be even shorter. Really hope we have a season. I think that's just a point. I don't think there's much of a question in there. Number 2, for a player like Zeke Elliott, I'm sure both he and the organization are glad he got the virus now so he can be over it before the season even starts. It's going to be interesting to see what the star players get the virus either deep in the season or during the playoffs. I'm not suggesting everyone get the virus now to be done with it, but the antibodies, hopefully they will have immunity once they get it. Studies how show healthy athletes have minimal symptoms once they get the virus. What are your thoughts? Yeah, that's all above my my medical school learning. Which is none.
I mean, obviously,
in case anybody just joining the show, none.
Dave Bryan, MD, coming this fall on ABC. Yeah, obviously, I'm in the same boat there. I just don't even like framing it that way of, oh, well, it's good they got sick early. I don't want anyone to get sick. Obviously, I know the reader, I'm sure, agrees. He doesn't want anyone to get sick. And while athletes are obviously usually in good health, they're not immune from the short and long-term effects of the disease. I think Von Miller's talked about how he still had long side effects and his potential scarring of the lungs. And I think Rudy Gobert said he still has some mild symptoms and effects. He's not 100% recovered from COVID. And what about players that are higher risk, like Cam Haywood, who has asthma? And that could really, put him in jeopardy if he gets sick. So I don't like that idea of, well, it's good they got sick early. And we don't even know if you're immune to it if you catch it once. I think there's been some reports. I don't think there's a consensus on this. That some people have tested twice separately from it. Who knows if that's true or not? I'm not to say, but we're not even sure if you're 100% immune after you get COVID once. So I just don't even like thinking about it in those terms because these guys can get sick. It's a serious disease, and while most players are going to be generally fine, there are some long-term health effects to worry about as well.
Man, I'm just sitting back and being a spectator through all this and trying to learn, what I can as we go. I mean, this is all I never in my mind, in my right mind did I think this would be the kind of stuff that we'd be discussing, after this summer after the 2019 season ended. I learned something or think I learned something new every day when it comes to this. It's going to be interesting to see how some sort of list is created because, like it or not, some people are going to test positive for this thing, right? Moving forward.
I think it's going to be the biggest challenge for the league. I think those numbers are going to be pretty high. I mean, I think the NHL, NBA around 5% right now, and if you do 5% of 90-man roster across the league, that is a couple hundred players.
I guess I guess it's worth asking. The question is why even have sports right now, Alex? I mean, why even try to have sports right now, knowing that players are going to get sick?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. I think you want to at least attempt it and see if it can be done because sports obviously plays a lot of value in people's lives and the players' lives. There's a business side of it. Let's not make any mistake about it. That's a driving force behind these leagues trying to restart their leagues is to make money, all the money they've lost so far, not to try to lose any more or much more. So that's the big driving reason behind it is that it has value, obviously, in society. I would love to have sports in an ideal world, and it's a business, and they're trying to make money. I
mean, because we're barring something changing real quick, we're going to see the NBA and the NHL and Major League Baseball all. I think less kind of concerned maybe about Major League Baseball, but I mean, you still have how you going to social distance a man on first with the first baseman holding them on. There's just. You add the human element into any of this, and you're setting yourself up, for transmission of this thing,
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't see how you can prevent this from being a pandemic still.
Yeah, you can't prevent it. I mean, yeah, you can try to mitigate it the best you can. Yeah, maybe.
How do you even mitigate something like this? I mean, you can't even keep players from at the urging of the NFLPA to not work out with each other right now. And I understand Harbaugh kind of saying, look, how do you expect us to do some of this stuff? Sure. But still, you have all these people, players and coaches that want and think that the season will go on as planned. I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't. It's not my decision. But what happens if this thing? Where is the breaking point where you say, just too many people are getting sick here. We just got to pull the plug on all this. Where is that?
I don't know. I don't think anyone knows right now. You kind of just play it by ear. You might just know it whenever you know it. I think that exists, though, sure. And I said the NFL's biggest challenge is going to be there's going to be a lot of players test positive, and most will be asymptomatic or mildly, symptoms, and they're going to be okay, but still they have to be quarantined and contact traced, and just a lot of questions we've never had to deal with before. They're all important things you're asking, Dave. Unfortunately, I, and the rest of the world just don't have answers right now.
Right. Do you think, from where you sit right now, do you think A, the NFL season will start on time, and B, the complete season will be played?
I think the first question's easier to answer than the second. Yes, I think the NFL will start on time. How it's going to go from there, I don't know. You made a good point, though, yesterday, Dave, that at least the NFL is starting after, baseball, hockey, basketball, and they can at least get a sense of how a season might go before their season really ramps up.
And we don't think any fans are going to be in the stands, at least initially, right?
No, my expectation is that, it could vary maybe locality, but my guess is no.
Right. What a mess.
Yeah, I mean, again, this thing changes so much that what we say now can be and probably will be totally different 2 weeks from now. So who knows?
All right. Any final thoughts here?
After that pick me up we just gave the listeners.
Have a nice life. Enjoy your Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some sort of positive note here. We have a Steelers flashback from Josh Carney today, 2017. 39-38 comeback win to beat the Ravens to win the AFC North. You guys can check out and take that walk down memory lane to kind of pick your spirits up.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and we entertain you and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar to make a secure donation that way. Also, if you want an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, you can go to the site and click the ad-free button up right navigational bar. For $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site that helps you, that helps us in the same breath there. So Alex and I will be back on Friday, and we'll see what else we have new to discuss. I'm sure we'll have another position group to discuss. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.